Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen, and football is back. The American will have 3 teams in action for the upcoming Labor Day weekend coming up. Joe Miller of the Navy Radio Network will be here to discuss the BYU-Navy game on Labor Day night. But first, SMU will get the first crack at getting the American in the win column. They will play at Texas State. That will be on Saturday at 4:30 on ESPNU as Coach Sonny Dykes returns his high-octane offense behind prolific quarterback Shane Buechele. By the way, SMU won their only previous meeting last year with Texas State by a 47-17 score. And then later in the evening, Memphis opens at home against Arkansas State. First-year head coach Ryan Serverfield is excited to get things going.
Wow, we all should be grateful for the opportunity for what's presented ahead of us. A great opponent coming to the Liberty Bowl this Saturday in Arkansas State. Quite excited. Our young men, our student athletes cannot wait. You guys know the time, the effort, and the preparation that it takes to get ready for a season. And this offseason has been one like any other. And our guys continue to keep the right mindset and the right focus moving forward with all of our attention and detail to a wonderful opponent on Saturday. Let me also start with this press conference by saying that, we cannot discuss COVID-related issues. That's something that our football program will keep in-house. And then also as far as opt-out, the process of that, any player that's chosen to opt out until the paperwork is signed or they come public, we will not discuss that either. And that will be our policy throughout the rest of the football season, again, also in relation to COVID illness and how that relates to our team each and every week.
Meanwhile, that means that preseason All-American Kenneth Gainwell, the Tigers go into the season without him. He has opted out for the 2020 season. Arkansas State and Memphis, primetime, Saturday at 8 p.m. on ESPN. Memphis leads the all-time series 29-24, and there have been 5 ties, and they won the last meeting by a 31-7 score back in 2013. Our Spotlight Game of the Week is up next. Navy BYU. Joe Miller of the Navy Radio Network will be here to talk about that and more when the AAC Report continues in just a moment.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
Welcome. This is a promo for the Take a Left at Albuquerque podcast, new to the Nightline Sports Network. You should listen to it. I say things like this. We need to stop blaming Jerry because we would do the exact same thing if we owned the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Do you know how much fun it is to own the Dallas Cowboys? My guests will say things sometimes like this.
It's the Lord of the Flies thing that happens when they don't understand that things are wrong, spoiler alert, until Piggy dies.
Lord of the Flies has been out for like 100 years. I don't even know.
Sorry to everyone at home who I spoiled the book for. A book's been out for like 90 years or something.
And sometimes, rarely though, I'll say really stupid things like this. If they don't make it out of the West and the Raptors get to the finals, I will go on either this show or whoever's show and say that Kawhi Leonard is overrated because I have too much evidence of it. New episodes drop every Friday with me and some of my good friends right here on the Nightline Sports Network. Thank you for your time, and now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Oh, wait. I'm being told in my ear that this is a podcast, and there are no schedules. Well, this is awkward.
It is my pleasure to welcome back to the AAC Report from the Navy Radio Network. Joe Miller's here to help us talk about the opener between BYU and Navy on Labor Day night. And Joe, I got the most important question of all, and it probably takes on more meaning this year than ever before. Are you ready for some football?
I think so. It's so weird. As everybody knows, we're living in a different world these days as far as time. And we were talking the other day about how at this point we were getting ready to go to Ireland, and if it was a regular year, we would have opened up against Notre Dame, and it's crazy to think how things are different and how crazy things are, and how I'm sitting in the middle of my driveway last night getting a haircut from my wife, and it's just weird, man. As everybody's gone through it, it's just a weird, different year. But yeah, I'm definitely ready for it. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's the marquee matchup of the weekend. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's much debate about that, so I think that's cool. And you get a nationally televised audience on Monday night, on Labor Day night. That's always, the week before. I mean, that's always been a big night for college football. So I think it's a cool thing. It sucks that there won't be any fans there, but still, I think it's a great sort of a chance for Navy once again, as we've seen in these years past, from the Notre Dame games initially, and then the Army and the Air Force games, and then moving into a conference. I think it's another chance for people to start, as amazingly as this sounds, even after they went 11-2, sort of respect them a little bit more. And it's a great opportunity against a BYU squad. Yeah,
definitely important. And it has been a long and winding road to get here. The season was going to open in Ireland with Notre Dame, but due to the pandemic, it was new stateside. It was going to be Navy hosting Notre Dame for the first time at home. But now that Notre Dame has gone full in with the ACC, they've opted not to play this game. Be the first time in 93 years they haven't played. Yeah. And here we are. Great work by Chet Gladchuk, your athletic director, getting BYU onto the schedule to save that Labor Day date.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, because it was obviously when we saw the ACC schedule come out, and then there was obviously the notion that Navy was not going to go back to Notre Dame this year. I don't think that was really something that was going to happen when we heard that the ACC was going to have one out of conference game and was going to be a home game. So I think we kind of knew in that spot that we weren't going to do that for, consecutive years. Essentially it would be 3 straight years we were going out to South Bend. And to be able to recover and get a nationally known program like BYU, that obviously there's some strong connections between the two schools. I think that's huge in the fact that, like I said, playing on Labor Day night, I think that will give you a sense of, college football coming back. We got a little bit of a taste of it last weekend, but certainly this upcoming weekend, and then, of course, on Monday night football with the lights on. It's rare. We don't really have a lot of night games in Annapolis either. Granted, there's not going to be anybody there, but it's been a long time since we've had a night start at Naval Marine Corps Memorial Stadium. Off the top of my head, now that I'm thinking about it, it's been at least 10 years since we played a night game there. So I know we played Stanford there a ways back on a night game, and they traditionally early in the season would play some out-of-conference games at night. But it's been a long time since we've had a night game at Navy. So bright lights, game day is going to be there. Obviously, it's a muted experience because of everything going on. But it's still pretty cool, and I'm still jacked up about it. Looking forward to it.
Yes. And, of course, now as we go into the season, it was a great 2019 campaign with 11 wins a year ago, and a terrific season by Malcolm Perry with over 2,000 yards rushing. And now it's the next man up. And who will that next man up at the quarterback position be?
Well, it's going to be Dalen Morris to start. And, he's an interesting story, Jeff. It's a guy that has been the backup the last couple of years. Last year in fall camp kind of slid to the 3rd spot, and there was a couple of youngsters that kind of pushed him. And when camp started, they had talked about moving Chance Warren, who was one of the starting wide receivers last year, but to the quarterback position. He played a little bit there in high school, but you can't really call him a quarterback. But apparently Dalen Morris has taken the job and run with it here. So he's a guy that I know looks the part. There's no doubt about that as far as a quarterback. When he was recruited, they really were excited about his ability to throw the football initially. He had worked in a high school offense where it was mostly shotgun. So he's had to learn the triple option, but they've always been excited about his potential, but it's just been tough getting it there as far as from the transition from a shotgun primary pass offense to a option offense. But I think he's a guy that really controls the huddle, that people look up to him. And Navy's had a lot of success in years past with a senior quarterback who hasn't played a ton. It's not that unusual to see that here. We've had guys like Will Worth and Aaron Polanco and guys that really never got their shot until their senior year come through and play well. So it's not that extraordinary to see something like this. But I think we're all sort of looking forward to seeing him play because he really has never taken a meaningful snap at Navy. He came in a couple of situations due to injury, but all signs point to him being the starter on Monday night. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to offer. The coaches have always praised him. It's just been about getting on the field. So, and I do think that they will probably, at least early on, maybe open things up a little bit. And when I say open things up, that means maybe 2 or 3 more passes. They're not going to throw the ball 25 times. They might throw it a couple more times early in the season to help him get comfortable. But he is a little bit of a mystery. But I will say that everybody speaks highly of him, and they really are, excited about his potential.
And, of course, you got to figure Coach Ken Niumatalolo is probably, advising him, hey, look, don't worry about replacing Malcolm Perry. Be the best you can be, right?
Oh, yeah. You're not going to replicate the numbers that Malcolm had last year. I mean, I still, marvel at the fact that he went over 2,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards passing. And at this point last year, coming into the first game, Navy was playing Holy Cross, and there was a legitimate conversation about whether Malcolm could be the starting quarterback for this team. He had been benched after starting the season the year before at quarterback. They've been moved back and forth between slot back and quarterback. And there was a lot of people that didn't think he could play the position. And obviously he proved those doubters wrong. And it's funny that you come into this year with everybody going, how can they replace Malcolm? How are they going to do this? And I don't know if it's necessarily one guy that can replace him. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Dalen's not going to be able to rush for 2,000 yards this season. But it's the supporting cast around him. And I know, you look at Jamel Carruthers, the fullback, he kind of burst on the scene. They're a little bit banged up at slot back, but I think as the season progresses, I think they'll have a little bit more stability there. And I know they're not going to throw the ball around a lot, but I really like their wide receivers. I think those guys, Michael Cooper and Ryan Mitchell in particular, can make some plays on the outside. Cooper's a big dude. I mean, he fits in to what they ask of their wide receivers to do as far as blocking, but he can also get downfield. So I think they'll try and do some different things, at least initially. It's funny, obviously we've been kind of barred from practice like any other place. You can't go out and watch practice. And so it's one of those things that it's a little bit of an unknown for me coming into the season to see what they are doing offensively. But last year they did run a little bit more run and shoot stuff as far as, not a lot. But I do think you'll see a little bit more of that maybe coming into the first weeks of the season to maybe let Dalen get a little bit more comfortable. But it's not him to make up those numbers. I think it's the supporting cast that can really help him boost those numbers this season.
Yeah, you do make a great point that there's still vital parts of the offense that are coming back for sure that help that out. Now, as far as the offensive line goes, I believe you have a couple of returning starters there. And Navy is traditionally, though, has been able to keep the chain moving as far as the replacements on the offensive line go.
Yeah, it's a system. You hear that a lot when you look at Air Force and Army and Navy, because when you look at these institutions, you rarely see a sophomore starting. So that means that it's heavily juniors and seniors. So you have to replace these guys every year. And look, the thing that I think helped more than anything last year for this Navy team is their offensive line stayed healthy the entire season. I mean, that's been a rarity over the last 3 or 4 years. And because of that, they didn't, they worked in. Now, I will say that they usually will rotate 2 guys just because of the way they play. And that they bring heavy sets in. So there's guys that, there are 2 starters back, but there's as a unit, they actually have more experience playing time than they did coming into the season last year. So they just have guys that have played a lot as backups, not necessarily starters. So they've moved a couple of guys around on that offensive line. That's something that when you look at other schools, you might see that as a sign of weakness. But I always caution people, when you look at Navy, if they move a guy from right tackle to center or center to right tackle, it's really not in their scheme. It's really not saying a ton. It's just that they like him a little bit better for what they want to do game plan-wise in a lot of situations. So sometimes when you look at that, it's when you're looking at normal schools, you might think of it as a demotion or a guy can't play a tackle and they're moving him inside. I wouldn't necessarily say the same thing at Navy. I just think schematic-wise, sometimes they like to balance things out and like guys at certain positions because of what they can offer in the run game, not necessarily the pass game, which is obviously the primary reason most schools look at their offensive line.
And you switch to the other side of the ball on defense. Brian Newberry, as a first-year coordinator last year, really turned that defense into something special. How do you think that will translate into this season?
Yeah, I mean, they obviously lost some guys at linebacker with Jacob Springer. He transferred. He went to Ole Miss. Their backup, one of their other linebackers, transferred to go to Wake Forest. But at the conclusion of last season, coming back, it looked like this defense was going to be the strength that could actually lead this team. So they've lost a couple guys to transfers. But I still think you look at their defensive line, they've got to replace Jackson Pittman at nose tackle. But other than that, they're really strong in the defensive line. A lot of guys that have played there. Diego Fagot is one of the best middle linebackers in the conference. I really love their cornerbacks and Cameron Kinley and Michael McMorris. I think that they're as good a combo that Navy has had at cornerback in a while. But losing Springer is Springer was their top pass rusher off the edge. He gave them a different element. That's not going to be easy for them to do, but I think it's crazy when you look at the numbers from last season because they improved by 11 points per game. They had 30 sacks last year. They had 10 the year before. They got off the field on third down. I'm a big believer in Brian Newberry. Getting the chance to talk to him all last season and to kick his brain on things, I really think he's a fantastic coach, and I really give him the benefit of the doubt that they'll have things ready to go defensively. And it was a coup for them. Mississippi State, it seemed like they were hot and heavy after him this offseason. It was big for the Naval Academy to have him stay around this year because if they had replaced him in all the commotion that happened after this offseason, that would be tough for me to try to factor in, new defensive coordinator, how much time he's been able to have with his team and practice field and all that stuff, no spring. So to have him stay, it looks even tenfold better for Navy with everything that's going on. I'm a big believer in Brian Newberry, so I have confidence in the defense. The numbers might not be as good as last year. They might be better, though. They really love their secondary. I can tell you that. And I think if they can figure out that pass rusher element that they had in Springer, I think their numbers will be pretty similar to last year.
And looking at the special teams side of things, Bijan Nichols, as a freshman, was 12 of 17 on field goals, 61 of 62 on extra points. And is there a possibility he also might punt this year, too?
Yeah, the punter situation is a little bit up in the air right now. I think they're trying to figure that out. I do know traditionally Navy does not like to use, just talking to head coach Ken Niumatalolo, he does not like to use his kicker as the punter. He just thinks it's one of those things that he's just not a big believer in. So I think the punter's position's still up for grabs right now. Special teams, Nichols came out of nowhere last year. I remember sitting at fall camp practice late in August last year, and he hit like 3 47-yard field goals in a row. And it was like, okay, kicking competition is over. And he came in and he kicked some crucial kicks for them last season. So I think they're really happy about that. I do think, like, small things, you know how coaches are, Jeff, like punter, holder, snapper, those kind of things worry coaches, especially with the offseason that it has been for them this year. And it's just about those guys kind of coming out. And I do think they lost some slot back depth. Just guys decided not to to play this season. So the return game will be affected in that as well. So they've had to shuffle the deck there too. So special teams is one of those areas that you look at and you say there are a couple more question marks there as they try to figure things out.
And of course, as we go into this season, what do you think the biggest challenge was in order to get prepared for this season, based with all the things going on with COVID and everything else?
Well, it was so many things, I guess. The thing that I look at is the limited contact in what is, essentially, fall camp right now. I think you never know about, because of what Navy does offensively, it's the limited contact and turnovers that I think they're most concerned about handling the ball. Obviously the hand up, the mesh between fullback and quarterback, the pitches to the outside, and I think the tackling on the defensive side of the field. I mean, I thought in the first, in talking to the coaching staff last year, the first 4 or 5 games last year, Navy really tackled as well as I've seen them tackle in a long time. As the season progressed, I thought they kind of wore down a little bit, and I think that was one of the things that they wanted to improve the depth and maybe play more guys this year. And now some of the subtractions, I think, to the defensive side might affect those. So we'll see how that goes. But I think, turnovers and handling the ball is always crucial in this offense, and the lack of contact, I think, in this fall camp probably concerns some about, how that will look on Monday night.
And as you prepared for the upcoming radio broadcast and looking at BYU, what are the challenges that the Cougars will bring forward?
Yeah, I think they're a really good football team. The first thing that I think pops out to me when I watch them play from last season is their quarterback play. I mean, I really like, Zach Wilson, their quarterback. I thought he was very impressive. He has battled some injuries. But when you look at and watch him play, I think he's a talented quarterback. It's weird because of the conference that Navy is in. The running backs and wide receivers for BYU don't stick out as much as when I watch SMU and UCF and obviously the conference teams in the AAC. But they're good. I'm not taking anything away from those guys. But I think Wilson's the key. He's played a lot, started as a freshman, and he's a pretty accurate guy. He moves pretty well. He's a little bit taller than Johnny Manziel, but he has that same sort of mannerisms out there, so it kind of reminds me of him throwing the football. I have no idea what they're going to do on defense. They don't have a lot of experience against the option. Last year they were a 3-4 team. They were moving to the 4-2-5 this offseason. They only really had about 3 weeks to prepare for Navy, and I don't know, I was talking to somebody with BYU who follows the team pretty well, and he says, I have no idea what they're going to do defensively, how they're going to line up. I don't think Navy really has a decent idea of how they're going to line up. So that's the rare thing. Usually in this first game, we're talking about a team that has seen Navy on the schedule for 6 months and knew how they were going to prepare for them for the last 6 months. I don't know if BYU's had the time to, and they switched defenses even though they have the same defensive coordinator. So I'm really interested to see what they do defensively. They really haven't played a team like this. Even when I went back and looked at their season last year, they played a lot of teams that threw the ball 50 to 60 times. So it's a unique experience, obviously, as you know, to play this offense. But I'm really interested to see how they try to defend it and try to stop Navy. I think that's going to be interesting to see how they line up and how they try to, they didn't bring a lot of pressure last year. They weren't a team that blitzed a lot or brought pressure or were very aggressive. So I don't know how they'll defend it, but I'm really impressed by Wilson, their quarterback, Zach Wilson. I think it's a good, solid team. I don't think it's completely unlike their Navy Bowl opponent, Kansas State. I don't think a lot of people flash when you watch them play, but they're just a good, consistent, don't kill themselves football team.
And of course, with the Notre Dame game being a casualty of things this year, and in the grand scheme of things, that's not the biggest thing that could go wrong, right? But there is interruption in the series, but they will be playing for years to come. But I still imagine there is some disappointment that the series won't be played this year.
Yeah, I think so. Everybody sort of understands what we've all been going through. So I think it was, the tough thing about it, I think, was when they initially announced that the game was going to be in Annapolis. I think really got people excited. And then you say, oh, well, it's not going to be played now. But they did extend the contract after they decided they weren't going to play this year. So I think, I'm just lucky to have football. So I'm cool with that sort of being pushed to the side for a year. But, I think from the get-go, from all this, started, it was always, because the game was in Ireland and it was an international game, you always had, a sinking feeling about that game, whether it was going to go off, where it was going to be played at, and what was going to happen to that game. So it's an unfortunate casualty, but all things considered, I think people are understanding of that, and it's become a marquee matchup. But honestly, because Navy's involvement with the AAC, not that the game has lost any importance, but I just think a lot of times in years past, for Navy, it was Army, Air Force, and Notre Dame, and they didn't take the other games off by any stretch of the imagination, but there wasn't a marquee. But now we've developed some rivalries in this conference, and people, I think, look forward to the games against Memphis and look forward to the games in conference. And I think that's what's changed, at least from my perspective. I think for maybe the older fans that follow Navy, that Notre Dame game still holds a valuable allure. But I think a lot of people that follow this team here recently look at the conference games and say, hey, let's try to win this conference. We're watching Memphis and Cincinnati last year. We're trying to, we're watching Memphis and Tulsa and hoping that Tulsa can pull the upset so we can play in the conference championship game. So that dynamic has changed it a lot. So I think that maybe softens the blow for losing Notre Dame this year.
And how do you think the overall season will go? What kind of feel do you have for the Midshipmen this year?
Well, I think last year when I was talking to you before the season, I was pretty optimistic, and that was coming off with 3 losses. And this year with 11 wins, coming off an 11-win season, look, I think this season, who knows? As far as like the entirety of it, I think I really like what they were defensively last season. I don't think they'll drop off too much from that. I think you look at their first 2 games. They played BYU, obviously, and then they played Tulane. Those are big games for them because I think those are, get Dalen Morris off to a good start. And I think offensively, I don't know if they'll get to the point where they were scoring 37, 38 points per game last year. But I think this team, if they can score over 30 points per game, I think they're going to be right in the mix. I know I just saw an email that was sent out, the predictions for the AAC this year. And I think the highest they had on CBS Sports was 4th. So I think they should be able to contend. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I think they should be in the mix. They don't play UCF. They don't play Cincinnati. So I think that's big. And because of that, I think they should be right in the mix and contending for, a conference title. I don't think that's ridiculous, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it will be interesting to see how that all plays out. And by the way, so, this is a home game for you. What will be your situation? Will you travel to the road games to broadcast?
Right now, it looks like we're going to be home for all the games. The team is going to be in a bubble, and we're sort of outside that bubble. So right now, we talked, we're going to be obviously at home games, we're going to be in the booth. But it looks like on road games, we're going to be broadcasting from the stadium right now. I don't think that's going to change. So I think, we're pretty set on being at home for road games, which is tough. But, if Major League Baseball can do it and everybody else is doing it, we're going to put our best foot forward and try to do the best broadcast we can, not being at the stadium. So from that perspective, it's rough not being on the road this year. But hey, I'm looking forward to football. I'm excited about the broadcast and looking forward to another season. I'm just glad we're having football. And so that part of it, will lessen the blow just because we have football going on.
All right. And Joe, where can folks follow you on social media and your other endeavors?
Yeah, it's JOMILMIL on Twitter. And I'm about to record our AAC preview podcast tonight with Pete Medhurst, who does the games with me on Navy, on our podcast podcast, It's College Football. So we're going to record the AAC preview tonight, and it should be out this week. So look for that. We'll preview all 11 teams now that UConn is no longer with us. So, yeah, if you get a chance to check that out, please do.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do that. Joe Miller, the Navy Radio Network, thank you so much for being here, and have a great opener on Monday night.
Thanks, Jeff. I really appreciate it. As
the Midshipmen go into the opener, Coach Ken Niumatalolo has big concerns with BYU's size.
Well, it's a big concern for us. Just they're front on both sides of the ball, offense and defensive line, very physical. They're well coached. They're a really well coached football team. And like I said, you just look at the teams that they played with. They played with a lot of Power 5 people. And up front, they didn't look out of place. They matched up against Tennessee up front, Wisconsin, USC. Obviously they play Utah every year. Very physical front. That's going to be probably one of my biggest concerns, Randy, because of the way we've been practicing. So it's kind of like hitting punching bags for heavy bags for a while, and then all of a sudden you go get in the ring, get hit in the face first time. So that will be interesting to see how that goes. So, but that's a major concern for us.
BYU at Navy, Monday night at 8 on ESPN. The all-time series tied at 1 game apiece. Brigham Young winning the last matchup way back in 1989 by a 31-10 score. And we'll be back to wrap things up on this edition of the AAC Report in just a moment.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Night Nation, this is Adam, one half of the dynamic duo that is the Sons of UCF, which is found only on the Nightline Sports Network. Join UCF Mike and I each week as we bring you some of the latest from in and around UCF sports, including such great segments as the Josh Heupel Translator, Top 8 Lists, and Cow of the Week. We'll also bring you some of the most in-depth and unique interviews with some of your favorite former Knights. You don't want to miss a moment, so make sure you subscribe to the Nightline Sports Network wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll take care of the rest. Go Knights. Charge on.
And that's about going to do it for this edition of the podcast. We thank you so much for listening. It is so great to have football back. And as always, please remember, follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. And like all of our Nightline Sports Network programming, and share it as well. This has been the AAC Report only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.